I think to your point on sales commission, it does seem, even though at the time it seems like it's beneath you or whatever, in reality, like anyone that has worked as a sales team or built a sales team or managed a sales team knows that having the right sales commission structure in place is like probably the one of the, if not the most important things you could do in setting your sales team up for success. Because, and I have my own sales team now. I mean, obviously it's very different from like an enterprise level sales team for a company like Slack. But like what I've learned is that salespeople will behave how you want them to behave based on the way you set your commission plan, right? Like they will just act in whatever way is going to get them paid the most. And so like you actually have a lot of control over like how you want them to act, right? But like so much thought has to go into like how you build that plan to make sure that also you're not accidentally incentivizing the wrong behavior, because salespeople will also like try to game the system and whatever. And sometimes if you don't set the right plan, they do like things that were not what you intended for them to do, right? And so there's so much like strategic thought that has to go into that. I'm like nowhere as deep into sales ops as you were, but like I had to do, similar type stuff when I was at GitHub. And there's actually, like you said, a lot of depth to the subject matter, I feel like. So then obviously when you join Slack though, I think you joined like right before they raised like a $200 million round or something, right? At least if I looked at your LinkedIn, I think that's the case. And so at the time when you joined, I think their $200 million round was like $3.8 billion post money or something. And then you were there for like 6+ years. Like it was just like an eternity in startup land, because most people stay probably no more than 4 years, I would say, sometimes less. And then obviously like you were there when the acquisition to Salesforce happened, which in a way I guess kind of is full circle, because you talked earlier about potentially having you could have worked for Salesforce. And then so like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, like that was what, $28 billion or whatever, is one of the largest software exits in history. I don't know if it still is, but at least at the time. And so to put 6 years into helping build a business and then to see that come to like, culminate in this type of exit, like I feel like not everyone has experienced that before. What was that experience like? And also like what was going through your mind the day that deal closed?
Yeah, good question. I mean, Slack was an incredible experience. And if I talk to all my peers and colleagues, that many of whom have moved on since then, I think everybody is kind of craving to recreate that in their new place.
Mm,
The further you get away from it, like in time, the more you realize how special it was. And, there's definitely elements of it that, I took for granted. I think many of my peers took for granted because you just don't know any better. Business cycles last decades, not years. And right now we're in a certain business cycle where SaaS, is challenging, but we were in an upswing when I was there. And so
mm,
Slack was kind of like at the right place at the right time with this, first mover advantage as it relates to the product category, kind of like this text-based, chat-based collaboration.
yeah.
And, the PLG model was relatively new as well. And so we were able to like capture all this organic demand. And then you had the pandemic and, businesses needing to be hybrid or remote and kind of looking to recreate that office water cooler talk. There was so many things that added up, or like because the company was doing well and was grabbing headlines, we were able to attract the top talent. And so you put all these things together, it makes for an incredible experience. And, and yeah, I would say like when the moment that stands out to me, because there was capital raises, there was a direct public offering, and there was the acquisition. It's really the DPO day, the direct public listing. That was a very special day. We had everybody at headquarters kind of getting together. We used to have these, like, we called them gather hours. They were kind of like happy hours. We call them gather hours because there was no expectation to drink. So that kind of like speaks to the Slack culture being really inclusive, and it shows up in little ways that really do add up. But we had this like a special gather hour to celebrate the listing, and there was just incredible energy in the air. I remember like I bought a champagne bottle for everybody on my team, and it was just like very, very special. And the next day, or maybe even in the afternoon, it was like back to business. I do remember that being an emphasis as well, because we, continued to have loose ends that we have to tie out, or like the next thing that we're going to do. And people wanted to bring their best selves to work. They were able to see the impact of their work, and the DPO was one culmination of it. But it was just like a being at Slack was a steady diet of challenge to success and challenge to success with that particular thing. And so you
Mm,
daisy chain it all together, you can get some really meaningful results. And yeah, that was an incredible ride. I will say, I was kind of like mid-career, mid-level seniority at that time. I don't
yeah.
envy, the executive team, because with great success comes great responsibility, and the choice to be acquired was probably surely a humbling experience for a breakout CEO, and there was always the intention to stay independent, but
Mm,
with a variety of factors, like it was such a astute move to do that, the acquisition and the valuation multiple that it received at that point in time, and kind of like where the macro stood. Yeah,
yeah.
Slack's story during my time there was really like a series of very fortunate events, and I just feel so grateful for that experience.
That's amazing, man. And yeah, like I think what stands out to me about what you just said is, you guys had this like huge milestone, so to speak, along the way. And then of course you celebrate the wins, but then once you've done that, it's like, okay, like our work is not done. Back to business. And then now you're working towards like you just continue to work on building the business. And that culture is probably part of what enabled you guys to hit that milestone in the first place, because like that wasn't like the end goal wasn't just to go public. It's like that's just a something that happened as a byproduct of how good of a business you guys were able to build along the way, right? So that's an amazing story.